I am my mother's oldest biological child. When I was 5, my father passed away, and she remarried my stepdad when I was 8. When I was 9, I was sent away to live with my father's sister who lived states away because her husband didn't want me to live there anymore. They used to pay my aunt some money to watch me, but when I was 14 that stopped. My aunt and uncle worked low-paying jobs and had 2 of their own children, so they really couldn't afford the extra expense of having me around without that help. Despite that, they let me stay and continued to treat me like one of their own. I very rarely saw my mom. I think I saw her 5 times between 9 and 18. She never even called. She went on to have 3 more children, 19, 18, and 16, with my stepdad. Growing up, I used to stalk my siblings and parents on social media to see what their life was like, and it was polar opposite to mine. They regularly went on expensive vacations, lived in a massive house, and owned the latest gadgets, etc. I went to college and got married at 23. My mother and siblings have no idea I'm married. I'm currently 28 and doing well financially. My husband and I own our own home. We have several very profitable investments and work high-paying jobs. My cousins, 30 and 27, and I all contributed to help my aunt and uncle to finally purchase their own home last year. Recently, my mom showed up to my aunt's house begging for financial help. Apparently, my stepdad suffered from a gambling addiction a few years ago and lost all their savings. Now with COVID, he's lost his job and they can't afford to keep their house without help. My aunt explained she didn't have any money to help her, and when my mother demanded to know how she could afford her new house if she had no money, she explained what me and my cousins had done. My mom then asked for my number. When she called me and explained the situation, I told her I couldn't help. She kept begging me and claimed my siblings would be made homeless if I didn't help them. I told her maybe she should sell some of their fancy stuff or they could all get jobs like my cousins and I had to. I hung up before she could reply. Since then I have been receiving message after message from my mom, my siblings and even my stepdad begging me for help. I have never spoken to my siblings in my life. They've begun harassing my husband and my sister-in-law. They've also reached out to my aunt and cousins multiple times trying to get them to convince me to change my mind. I'm so angry with them all. They threw me away, and when they need something, they come crawling back. But the guilt is also starting to set in and I don't know if I'm being an idiot. Am I? Not the idiot. They made their bed, now they've got to lay on it. If they're so desperate for cash, they've got assets and objects they can sell, they can get less paying jobs, but that can mean an income, and they can figure out how to live their lives without you, as they have for so many years. Sorry you got that mother OP, but sounds like your aunt, uncle and cousins gave you a lovely home all the same. Your mom and stepdad basically sent you to the farm because he didn't want you around and then went on to have more kids and a happy family without giving you a second though. They aren't your family. Your family are your cousins, aunt and uncle that raised you and took care of you. Don't give those strangers a single penny or listen to them when they start up with half-assed apologies or demands that you pay them back the money they sent your aunt and uncle. You did help your family financially, you bought them what is clearly a beautiful new home. Good on you. These other people wouldn't give your aunt a pot to piss in back when she was struggling financially to raise you on their behalf. You therefore know that they would not do what they are asking you to do. They very much made this bed they're about to climb into. If the guilt that you should not be feeling still niggles at you, research a charity that might help them, direct them to it, then make a donation to the charity. My half-sister has a weird obsession with me. She stalks me on my social media profile and acts like a deranged ex. I'm pretty popular on Instagram, where I also post my art, so making it private is not an option. She is 17 and I haven't seen her in years. The last time I saw her, she was 12 and it was at my grandfather's funeral. My biological father had an affair with one of my mum's friends when she was dying. It was sick and my poor mum found out about it 5 days before she passed away. The other woman was already pregnant with my half-sister. I was 15 and old enough to know what that meant. I refused to live with my dad, courts allowed it, and started living with my maternal grandparents. My 2 older siblings were in college and they haven't talked to him in years. We chose to keep them out of my life and we like it that way. Whenever my husband or my siblings make any sweet post, she literally spams the comment section with comments about us abandoning her and our biological father. I keep blocking her, but she comes back with new ideas every time. I definitely think she is not in a good mental place and needs help. Possibly professional help. The last straw was on Mother's Day when I tried to post a beautiful tribute to my mom. I posted many pictures. Some of those pictures were beautiful family pictures and I edited my biological father out of them. She commented about me posting edited pics and abandoning our father. It was a long post and she actually posted several old family pictures in her account. That post got a lot of attention and people started asking me about it. Only this time, I didn't delete or comment or block her. I replied under her post and asked her to stay away from my life. All this time, I avoided a confrontation because I believed she was young and misled by her parents. But as a 17-year-old, she should know better. This was my reply. I don't know about others, but for me and my siblings, just because our biological father decided to make love with some rando and cheat on our dying mum, doesn't mean we owe anything to him or the result of his indiscretions. Please respect our boundaries and leave my family alone. You are old enough to understand this, and if it bothers you, consider therapy. This level of obsession with our lives is really unhealthy. I wish you and your family well. Am I the idiot? Definitely not the idiot. If she wants to publicly shame you for a very reasonable choice, then she can get a taste of her own medicine. You aren't responsible for her or her father in any way and have every right to keep them away. If she can't respect your boundaries and continues to spam your account, I would strongly consider taking legal action as well. This sounds like borderline stalking and defamation, especially considering the circumstances. What the hell is wrong with you? This kid is your sister. It's not her fault your father had an affair, it's not her fault your mum died, none of this is her fault, yet you won't even acknowledge her as family. Is it so bizarre that a child would want a relationship with their siblings? You have abandoned her. She grew up knowing that her siblings don't want her. Are you actually surprised that she is damaged by it? Of course, you won't forgive your father and he doesn't deserve it, but punishing your baby sister? Mate, get a grip. You're nearly twice her age, grow the hell up. You're the idiot. You shouldn't be forced into a relationship with your half-sister, she is 17 and you're 32. I can't imagine having a public spat on Instagram with a teenager being ever okay at your age. Additionally, you are attacking her, result of his indiscretions is not kind, she has no say in who her parents are, and knowing that you are somewhat a public figure, I think it would have been unrealistically naive to not expect online bullying from your post. That is also incredibly cruel. I, 30, am a white American woman. My ex-boyfriend, the father of my daughter, 30, is Chinese American. We began dating our junior year of college and after graduation moved in together. We eventually got serious enough to consider marriage and I began learning Chinese as a way of connecting to his culture and family. I'm not totally fluent, but I can hold fairly complex conversations. When we were 25, I found out I was pregnant, oopsie. He wanted me to get an abortion, but I ultimately decided to keep my child. I was uncomfortable with termination and was in a solid enough financial position to support a kid with a good foundation of emotional support from my parents. But he told me that he wasn't interested in being a father. Personally, I'm of the belief that if a woman can unilaterally decide to abort, a man can decide not be uninvolved with his child's life. We broke up, and while it was heartbreaking and very difficult, it was the best move for both of us. We were no longer on compatible paths. Though he doesn't have custody, he does sometimes visit his daughter. Something I was very cognizant of once I realized that I was going to be single parenting was that I was going to be a white mother with a child of color, raising her with very little contact with her Chinese family. I know that many children in this scenario can struggle with cultural identity, and I wanted to do what I could to ensure that my daughter isn't totally disconnected from her Chinese roots. I made sure to keep up my Chinese language skills, learn to cook Chinese dishes, and when my daughter was born, made sure to take her to Chinese cultural events and things like that. I've been attempting to raise my daughter with some skill in Chinese language. I speak to her in Chinese, watch Chinese TV with her, and have recently started giving her some kiddie workbooks in Chinese language. Last time her father visited, though, he was very upset to see those workbooks in my home. He told me that Chinese culture isn't mine to impart on my daughter and that any form of Chinese culture I try to engage in with my daughter would be completely unauthentic. He said that, though DNA-wise my daughter is Chinese, she functionally has no real cultural connection to China and that it's super cringy of me to try. He told me to stop and that it should be his decision as it's his culture. I told him no. I don't think he's really thinking about what's best for our daughter. But I also recognize that it's his culture, not mine, so maybe I should listen to him. I don't know. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. As a Chinese American, I think you're making a good effort to connect your daughter with some of her culture. As someone else mentioned, Chinese school might be something that could benefit you and your daughter. I went to Chinese school, which was a once-a-week thing on a Saturday, and got to connect with a lot of kids, including fully Chinese kids adopted by white parents and half-Chinese kids. To be honest, there were also people there who didn't even have a connection to being Chinese, who was just interested in learning and the culture. Sure, there were some close-minded people who judged them, but for the most part, many people at the school were very supportive, and it was a great community environment. I dated a guy in high school whose family made him go to Chinese school. He hated it, like any teen would hate spending part of their precious weekend on more school, but did admit that it helped with his language skills and staying somewhat connected to his cultural background in a predominantly white part of the United States. OP, this is a good suggestion for your daughter, especially while she's young. When she's older, she can decide for herself how much she wants to be connected to her Chinese ancestry. Plus, man, I'm jealous of your daughter's language skills. I wish someone had raised me bilingual. He doesn't want to be a father, but he wants to tell you how to raise your daughter. This is a no-go for me. Also, over 1.5 billion people speak a dialect of Chinese. Even if she wasn't Chinese American, it would be good for her to learn the language. Teach her a Romance language too, and she'll have some serious skills later in life. You're broadening your daughter's cultural horizons in a very positive way, and that is always a good thing. Not the idiot. We have had my niece and nephew for over 2 years. My sister has severe mental health issues, and one day she was having a pretty bad breakdown and was a danger to the kids. We went and picked up the kids, and her husband said he would take her to the hospital. He then did not take her to the hospital or to get any other kind of help. Instead, they left their 2 children, 2 years old and 2 months old at the time, with us for an entire month, without even bothering to check on them that entire time. Finally, after a month of that, my sister's husband took her to the hospital, and she told the hospital that she had been treating badly her children, and so CPS got involved. Anyway, long story short, we ended up becoming official foster parents for the kids. The parents voluntarily terminated their parental rights, and as of yesterday we've officially adopted them. In the process of adopting the children, we gave them our last name. They previously had their bio-father's last name, and the bio-father's family is pissed that we changed their name. The bio-father says he feels betrayed and wants to have a serious talk with us. I'm inclined to say no. There are kids now. They should have our last name. There is nothing to discuss. What do you think? Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Terminated rights are terminated. I wouldn't enter into any conversation on the topic, be it serious or frivolous. I get that they are essentially grieving for their parental role, but they don't get to act out against the folk who stood up to the plate for these poor kids. It's also a total pain to have parental rights over kids with different names with schools, hospitals, airports, etc. Is it possible the bio parents don't understand that these aren't their kids anymore? A friend of mine had a similar arrangement for a while. That didn't end in adoption though, and the bio dad treated the whole thing like some kind of babysitting service. Especially if they are still getting updates and visits, which is totally the right thing I think to start with. It may be inflating their sense of involvement and importance as parents. Changing a last name is super common when combining families. I might be willing to entertain the other side if you were changing first names, as the children are likely old enough to mind their first names changing, but family names. It's just sad their bio dad cares more about the kids having his last name than actually being taken care of. Me, 31, and kids, 2 and 4, moved with my husband, 31, from where we met, married and had our children in California to Texas. We always said we would raise our kids in small-town Texas, where my husband grew up. It was his dream, and I was happy to support him. When we moved to a house a few blocks away from his parents, we thought we would be getting some help from his parents with the kids. They babysat the oldest twice in 8 months. They showed very little interest in the kids, but had my husband over multiple times a week doing things for them. They are in their 60s and in good health and did come over to dinner a few times. He adored his parents and they adored him. Their only child. Their golden boy. My husband was diagnosed with a rare cancer that was terminal earlier in the year. He died within 5 weeks of diagnosis. It was tragic and I am still in shock. When he was dying he was in a great deal of pain and on painkillers and wasn't always coherent or thinking straight. However, he told me his parents were devastated. I would move the kids back to where I grew up in Canada and they wouldn't be able to watch the kids grow up. Well, that was my exact plan. My parents are the most amazing grandparents and help my sister out a lot, 2 days a week of full babysitting. And would do the same for me. Canada has a great education and healthcare system, and my siblings and parents are live near each other, so the kids and I would have a support network. I lied to my husband. I told him I would stay and raise the kids as Texans as we had planned. He was in so much pain and distress and I couldn't add to it. I chose the easy way out. 2 weeks after the funeral I moved my sweet babies home to Canada. My parents-in-law are now telling everyone I betrayed a dying man's last wish. I have told them we will visit every year and they are welcome to visit us in Canada whenever they wish. They don't care, they said I have broken their family. Am I the idiot for lying to my dying husband and breaking up his family? Not the idiot. You need help and support. Your husband was unfortunately, and not his fault at all, not able to think clearly due to pain and painkillers and asked you to do something he might not have even wanted you to do if you weren't in pain and on painkillers. Surely he'd want you to be supported and cared for, which will happen if you move back to Canada. I'm so sorry for your loss. You deserve some care now, take care of yourself and don't give this a second thought. No idiots here. It was kind not to tell your husband a truth that would only cause more distress, and moving closer to your support system in this difficult time is a very reasonable thing to do. It's hard to cater to everyone when the family is so spread out, so you should think of your children and yourself first. Besides, if you stayed, your parents would be in the position your in-laws are in now, so either situation would be unfair to someone. Better do what's best for your kids and be closer to people that can support you. So, we're just going to forget that the grandparents were horribly manipulative to their dying son. They haven't bothered with their grandkids thus far, but now all of a sudden their whole life will get ruined. OP is not the idiot. You're doing what's best for yourself and your kids. That's what matters, not what these old idiots think they're entitled to.